You're trying to conceive, your labs are normal, yet you're exhausted. And your kid's bedtime? Complete chaos. This isn't just poor sleep hygiene, it's a nervous system stress, and it's showing up both in your body and in your family. I'm Dr. Anjali, and today we're going to be breaking down why normal doesn't mean optimal and how to reset your energy and your sleep from the inside out. So let's talk about normal labs because so many people come in with normal labs and they're still exhausted. So the most frustrating scenario is when you're doing all the right things, right? You're eating well, you're getting your exercise, you're hydrating, you ask for your blood work, and then your doctor calls and says, everything looks fine, but you're still exhausted. You're wired at night, you're dragging all day, and deep down, you know this isn't normal. And that's because most lab ranges are built to detect disease, not dysfunction, and they flag major issues like anemia or hypothyroidism. But what they completely miss is when your body is under chronic stress. Let's say you get your thyroid labs, and that's usually something like TSH, and it comes back quote unquote normal. But no one ever did a full thyroid workup. So we don't know how that whole thyroid feedback loop is actually working. We don't know how your adrenal function is, what your sleep cycle hormones are doing. Or maybe your iron is barely in range and nobody asked, why is it low for being in postpartum? So that's not actually support. That's just dismissal by data. And also, when it comes to clinical ranges for labs, at least in the United States, let's talk about how those are determined. Because so much of the blood work interpretation is just looking at are things in range or out of range. So in the United States, most labs will take the data from the previous year and they'll determine a bell curve and they'll take about 85 to 90% of those results. And that becomes the reference range for that lab for the next year. So there are a couple things that present an issue with this. One is we don't know exactly who's getting tested in that lab. So you could have someone going in for an annual physical, you could have someone dealing with something like an autoimmune condition, something like a serious immune response, like whether it's cancer or something like that. It could be the cold or the flu. We don't know who's going in to get tested. And so now, if you take a bell curve of about 85 to 90% of those results, this isn't being tested on a quote unquote healthy population. So you could be technically in range and then not be flagged for needing more support because your results are being compared to somebody who may not be doing very well and being qualified as being okay. What's even worse is if your nervous system is dysregulated, those labs might even shift falsely. So your cortisol could rise, your progesterone could drop, and your body will prioritize survival over rest, over fertility, over focus. In the functional medicine interpretation, we do look at are things in range or out of range, but the reference ranges that are used in the functional medicine approach are typically more narrow. And it's looking at how close or far from optimal is your body functioning, not just are you in range or out of range. And we look at how does this all fit together, right? So just taking one value of a blood test and saying you should take a medication or a supplement or whatever the approach is for handling that specific value, we want to look at from a functional perspective is how does this play together? So whether your vitamin D is low or whether your lipid panel shows up as being high cholesterol or it shows that you have high glucose. How does this all fit together so that we can come up with a recommendation and a plan for you that is more comprehensive and not just chasing individual results or chasing the symptom? And then when it comes to your kids, it's important to recognize that your sleep might mirror your child's, right? Because here's what most providers never talk about. When your body is dysregulated, your child feels it and you co regulate. So if you're wired and exhausted and your child is melting down or they're feeling restless or they're wide awake at 9 p.m., 9:30 p.m., 10 p.m., whatever that time might be, that's not random. That's a shared nervous system rhythm. And when your body doesn't feel safe, theirs doesn't either. So what actually helps is regulating the system, not just the symptom. So instead of chasing better labs or new supplements or new medications or the newest app for sleep support or whatever that might look like for you, try this instead. First, try breathing before bedtime. If you can try a humming breath with your child, which is literally just humming, it could be humming their favorite song or humming something that sounds peaceful or relaxing to you. It can lower your cortisol for both of you. You can try having a morning and an evening rhythm, right? A routine that you follow, because that can create safety in our bodies that we know what's happening next. Our bodies can start to trust that, particularly for kids, because we really need that consistency to help create that safety in our bodies. So, having some morning and evening rituals that you do, particularly if it's focusing on sleep, the evening rhythm, having some anchors that you can trust, that your child can trust. So you can pick one or two. It could be perhaps you turn down the lights, perhaps you listen to some nature sounds or some soft audio, or you do story time, or you do some stretching, whatever that looks like for you and your family to help reset and regulate and have that evening rhythm. You can also use visual cues for transitions, especially for younger kids, because again, kids really thrive on predictability. It could be a picture based chart, right? It doesn't have to be words or it doesn't have to be you saying it. It could be a song that you play when it's time to wear pajamas or when it's time for lights out. It can be different cues that you have that indicate to your child that now we're transitioning into this next routine of bedtime. And if you do get lab work done, then working with someone who actually knows what optimal looks like, not just in range or out of range, or what sick care looks like, and working with someone who can look at how you and your family nourish your bodies and how each individual body is digesting the food, metabolizing it, and assimilating those nutrients. So we can make appropriate recommendations that are customized for you and not just a cookie cutter blanket recommendation. If this is sounding helpful for you, if this is hitting home, I think you're going to really love the free Stress to Strength guide. It's linked below. And what this includes is a family nervous system rhythm chart. It has some breath and movement tools, a functional checklist for what your labs should include, and a reflection prompt so that you can start feeling safe both inside and out. Or if you're ready for support beyond the guide, I'd love if you booked a clarity call and we'll walk through your rhythm, your family, and what your next best steps would look like. Because really, you deserve more than you're fine. You deserve to feel clear, rested, and supported, and so does your family. So let's reset together.